Welcome to your companion for industry insights and professional business development. Travel Market Life. Join us by webcast, video or podcast.
Hello and welcome to Travel Market Life. I'm your host Ryan Haynes, and in today's extended interview we're speaking to Clive Ratton, the Chief Executive of Business Travel Association. Now, he featured in our Travel Monthly Review show for February, where we looked in a bit more detail at business travel. In this conversation today, we learn about some of the trends related to business travel, the challenges that the industry is facing, and what the Business Travel Association is doing to support its members and the wider industry.
Travel Market Life.
Travel Market Life is backed by Haynes Marcoms, a B2B marketing communications PR consultancy specialising in the technologies, travel, hospitality and property sectors. Marketing, PR and social. Build profile, gain momentum, shape strategy with Haynes Marcoms.
Travel Market Life.
Hi Clive, thanks ever so much for joining us today. So looking at the business travel sector, there's been a huge amount of developments and change over the last couple of years. What are the key trends and market behaviours that you're actually seeing in the market for 2023 to 2024?
Yeah, hi Ryan, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, it's been a really good 2023 for the industry. It came back very strongly. The trend has been people getting back to business travel, which is hugely important for the industry and for the wider economy. I think some things have changed and trends for 2024. Obviously, we're chatting quite early in 2024, so there's still a bit of question over what will happen. But I think what we have seen is business travellers really getting back, doing longer trips away rather than quick round trips. Two reasons for that. One, clearly from a sustainability perspective, and the other is really around cost and time and wellness of the individual. So yeah, there's definitely a trend to longer trips, and I dare I say it, blended with some leisure time. I'm never going to use the word that has been canned for that because it just sticks in my gullet. But so yeah, that's really positive. We're back to pretty much close to where we were pre-pandemic in terms of revenues. Depending on who you read, anywhere between sort of 85 to 95% of where we were in 2019. But the interesting underlying fact under that right now is that is really driven by yield or cost increase. So passenger numbers are slightly down, but yield and the cost of everything, as we all know in our daily lives, has gone up. So there is a higher cost of everything, resulting in that revenue figure being closer than maybe the passenger figures were to the pre-pandemic levels. But so that's strong. Certainly a trend towards premium travel, bizarrely enough, if you look at it that way. But again, that links to the wellness and what we've learned out of COVID, and business travellers and corporates who very much important about the duty of care and well-being of their employees are really looking at that, and a shift to premium economy, which is a relatively a product that's been around quite a long time, but really beginning to gather momentum in the aviation space. So that's quite interesting, and whether that will continue. I think the future of 2024 really reflects that. The issues are that, sadly, we have a lot of global instability, and that always puts a question mark on what could or might not happen. But I think we also have the cost increase is a concern for business travel that's going to impact at some point. I mean, particularly in hotels. And I don't know if you've tried to get a hotel in London, for example, at the moment, you just can't get anything under about £300 a night. We were even trying to book what was called a budget chain, and it was over £300 a night at a peak period. And that, it spells good for a short term, but the longer term, in my opinion, that spells that either there's going to be a bit of crash in pricing, or the market will slow down by passengers people staying in hotels. So there's some interesting trends out there from that perspective. But overall, the trend is back. And I just have to say, sorry, Ryan, the next question is, it's really important that we get the message out that travelling for work is not just about people travelling for meetings. It's going to fix things. It's going to play sport. It's lots of things. So there's, it's not, you can't replace all of that because it's not a meeting as we're chatting over a video call today. Physically it has to happen. So we need to make sure that business travel is both sensibly priced, but also gets a return on the investment.
It's fascinating. I mean, I've been speaking to a number of hoteliers, and the price rates, as you say, for hotels have been going up and up and up, and a lot of that's been down to inflation, cost, staffing, a lot of issues in there, whilst obviously trying to grab what they possibly can from the market while the market's willing to pay for it. As we go into 2024, it's interesting your observations there, and that those costs, and as you mentioned, it's the increase in costs that are affecting businesses. What are some of the other key challenges, perhaps? Business travel and corporates need to be aware of within the travel industry that you feel could really impact sort of the way business travel can be effective and that could be disrupted anymore?
Yeah, well, I think the big one that we see as the issue we're all grappling with is distribution. Now, it is referred to modern airline retailing and not another three-letter acronym, but that applies right across the product set within business travel, and indeed in leisure, is companies, airlines, hoteliers trying to win business direct, which has an impact on many of the things we're talking about, not least TMCs, but duty of care reporting, carbon reporting, the whole trip management piece. And I think the move of the airlines, and I will say it, NDC, 15 years in, and it still hasn't achieved something. And this year, we're seeing it in the conversations we're having with our travel management members, but also with their customers, that it is a huge sense of frustration, something that is going to run through 2024, and a source of much frustration, but also a source of much opportunity if the whole industry could actually finally sit down and say, how does this work for everybody in the supply chain, instead of trying to look after number one all the time. And it's quite sad in some ways that during the pandemic, everybody worked together because we had a common interest, survival. Now we come out, it's about scrabbling back to the top, and I think hopefully we can learn from that. And around distribution is a recognition that there is a supply chain, it works, and the most important person it works for is the end customer, and we need to get our stuff together. I was going to say another word then, get our stuff together to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of new developments, not new technology, a lot of different direction and way that the industry as a whole, the infrastructure has adapted, evolved over the last few years, the direction of digitalization. Do you think there's been a lack of that real sort of community focus within the industry to actually tackle some of these bigger architectural, I guess, ways of having, looking after the industry in a way that's actually going to be profitable and allow us to scale for the future? I mean, as you mentioned, this idea of distribution, are people having enough conversations on these very foundations of the industry?
I think it happens quite widely in pockets between various parts of the supply chain. And a lot of progress has been made, and there's a lot of opportunity, and digitalisation is good, and everybody sees that. I think where the issue is the real end-to-end. It's rare, and it's something I take responsibility for at the BTA, is trying to bring that whole chain together to have that discussion right the way through, rather than the left hand and not talking to the right hand kind of scenario that we've seen. So I think it's really critically important, because I've always described it that the industry, and I'm talking about business travel here purely, of course, but the industry's been in civil war for 15 years, really, and the people that we're fighting over don't really care. They don't want the war. They just want us to set peace and make it work for them. And I think we need to really push that forward, and we will continue to do that this year, of saying, come on, we need to make this work. I think it's a big ask, if I'm honest, but if we can get it in pockets, then hopefully naturally it spreads and the whole system becomes a lot easier to move forward, because we all need to be profitable, clearly, and we all need to be able to invest and improve in the future, and that only comes if the whole chain works together in a really cohesive way, and we need to improve that. So I think it is happening, but a whole lot more could happen.
I mean, one of the great things from the pandemic is that you saw organizations like yourselves, the associations, really come into their own and represent their members. You're more than just a group of people happy clappy having conferences. You actually represent your members and look at some of the issues. And in particular, you've been challenging the industry around late payments. Can you tell me about this campaign and how you're looking at things being done differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is really interesting, coming out of, again, the situation we found ourselves in, where there was no business. But really, customers were very supportive through that to make sure their partners survived. But what we saw over the last 12 months was corporates and who come out to bid for a TMC to run their travel managed program, or one that was existing, and saying, sorry, you can't actually bid, or you can't carry on unless you extend our credit terms from 60 days to 90 days. And we even had some that were demanding 120 days credit. So it's kind of weird in this modern world where on the leisure side, everything's done by credit card. Over 60% of transactions in the travel management world are still on credit. So either you invoice and you wait for the payment to be made. And if you extend from 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and even beyond, that is crippling for our industry, as everybody in it will know that a huge amount of it is air travel. And on BSP, you sell an air ticket, and you have to pay regardless of what you do. It's taken out of your bank 7 days or 14 days, depending on what your terms are with BSP. If you then have to invoice and wait for 120 days, that's a massive hit on cash flow. In fact, an untenable hit on cash flow. So through our government lobbying, we spoke to Minister Hollenrake, who is the Minister for Small Business, and he gave me an audience, and we were chatting to him, and he introduced us to Good Business Pays, which is an organisation set up to challenge this. And so we worked in conjunction with them about how that could work, and they do a naming and shaming of those that are really poor, and to your phrase, a happy clappy are those companies that pay very quickly. So we wrote a white paper to help our members when challenged by corporates to say, do 60 days or 90 days or you don't get our business, is say, well, this is just not right. And the good news is that campaign, now the government have on the statute book waiting to go through a maximum payment term that will become law, hopefully, at some point in the not too distant future for when paying small companies. It doesn't apply to huge companies, but many of our members will be treated as SMEs. And I think we just have to have respect in business, right? There's a lot of respect being lost in the world, in my humble opinion, but one of them is in business. And if you've got a service, then you should be ready to pay for it, and pay for it as quickly as possible. And again, that of course helps your TMC, in our instance, reinvest that money because they're not chasing the cash, and provide a better service for you ultimately as you move forward. So it is a classic win-win for everybody, and we're really keep working with Good Business Pays, and they're using the template that we put together with them beyond the travel industry into other areas as well. So we were very happy to help, and really great to get government help and guidance to lead us to that.
I mean, I certainly would welcome a maximum payment term, because there are times where, if even, my customers can take months even to release the cash. And, as you say, that is just not fair on small businesses that, their cash flow is pretty tight. Now, at the end of last year, you got behind the Tourism Alliance. What does this mean for BTA and its members?
Well, it was really good. I was chatting to Richard at Tourism Alliance about business travel, and he said, well, why don't you join? And of course, the Tourism Alliance is very much about bringing inbound tourism to the UK and all of the service sector around that. And it was like, well, where does business travel play in that? But of course we do. We have a massive part in that, in that, we run conferences here in the UK, travel within the UK. And, I personally believe that collaboration is a good thing. They didn't have any representation for business travel within that sector, so it seemed a natural fit. So it gives us a chance to hear from our peers in other sectors, a wide and varied sector, which you can learn from, everything from caravanning through to big venues, is really important to pick that stuff up from. And it gives us a unified voice into government as well through their lobbying, which we were very happy to add our piece into. And we encourage, and always have done, as much collaboration across the industry as we possibly can, but remembering there is always nuances. It's a wonderful industry to be in because there's a zillion different parts with a zillion different issues, but so many of them are concentric circles, and it's those pieces that we need to pick on. And that's why we think being part of the Tourism Alliance this year will really help us, and we hope to help them as well.
I mean, it is fascinating. It's like, as you mentioned at the beginning, how business travel, the concept, has massively diversified, but also, how we consider ourselves what business travel is, whether it's, daily traveling for work, or whether it's conferences and events, or whether it's, longer stays at other offices or clients and meetings and all sorts, and the importance of having that face-to-face connection. There's the digital nomads, right through from those who want to take those combined business and leisure trips. Just another question here, Clive, that, I'd be interested to get an idea as to where thinking is. I've heard in particular, especially related to business and leisure trips, there could be an issue there, particularly with the likes of tax offices, HMRC, etc., of how they sort of recognise that as an expense between business and leisure. Is that an issue you're currently seeing for any of your members or businesses themselves, of how they're sort of categorising this, and whether that's considered an additional benefit or a tax relief for the business or their employee?
It is actually, yeah. We've had some conversation very much around the tax implications of people working anywhere overseas to the individual and to the company's liability, and that is something that it's kind of snuck under the radar because it was a lovely thing to do. And if you're a big corporate, you've got all the governance and you're across this. But if you're a relatively small business or a small travel management company says, yeah, fine, go and work in Tenerife or whatever you want to do for 3 or 4 months, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't be top of your radar to realise the tax implications around that. And it kind of snuck up on people that was an issue. So we've done some seminars with some of our legal partners to help our partners in that area. And I also think we're still kind of getting to grips with the implications of if you're going on a trip, and we're seeing much more of it, as I said, staying on for the weekend or even bringing your partner along for the trip, maybe being paid personally, but staying in accommodation that being paid for the company. All of those things, do have a potential knock-on effect. And it is really, as I say, the large corporates fairly comfortable with it. The others is a job of our members to educate their customers around it. And I'm not for a moment claiming that we're experts, and that's where we turn to other partners within the industry to help us. But all of these things are brand new, really, post-pandemic, and it's the job of the industry and associations such as ours to educate both members and their customers around it. So we will be working on that through the year as well, because you're right to bring it up. It is an issue.
I mean, it's fascinating. I've been working, as an independent consultant now for 15 years, and it's one of the things that I was sort of aware of, and certainly much more aware of in recent years, that, if you've got a 2-day conference, but it's a 5-day trip you're taking, that's only 40% of that trip you can really claim for business. The rest of it is under leisure. So it's great that you've got, quite a number of events and forums that you run with the BTA. Now, a couple I just want to focus on here is, firstly, you do a technology one. Can you tell me about the role of tech within business travel?
Well, it's huge. I mean, most of our members are technology companies these days. That's what is the backbone of business travel, and a real key part. And that, has seen a huge amount of investment in difficult times to make sure that it moves. But technology touches every piece of the chain that business travellers do. Same for leisure, but there's a lot more of it in business travel, because you've got pre-trip approvals right away through to carbon reporting, all done through digitalisation. Then apps on the move for changing bookings and moving them. So technology is absolutely critical, and we spend a lot of time looking at technology, and there is constant. We do a innovation hub usually twice a year, sometimes more, where we're bringing new products that are coming in, technology products, 99% of the time, into the business travel sector. And I think that this is great. There is a piece of technology for everything in business travel, but that also leads to a problem that you can see. I see 15 different companies doing 15 different things, each with their own bit of kit that has to be fed into a central API or onto an online booking tool to be able to feed in it. So it creates its own problem, the sheer spread of technology. And it's something we were talking about this week in the technology is, how do we pull it all together, and what technology is coming around to say, actually, here's a piece of technology that pulls all the technology in together to give you, the TMC, it all in one place. And that's where we've got to. There's almost a technology intermediary or an aggregator situation developing because there's just too much to go. So yeah, it's exciting, but at the same time, it creates a lot of issues, because everything that comes in, people want, even though sometimes you may only use it once or twice a year in some of the instances of the product that is out there. So yeah, it's complicated, but it's exciting to see it move. But never will we ever lose the human touch, because it's a human business, right? And that's the biggest thing. We always say technology will wipe it out. Still, the first thing that happens is, if you really want reassurance or you want to feel good about yourself, is you talk to a fellow human, and that will never go away.
Absolutely. Now you have your spring conference coming up on the 11th of March, 2024. What can we expect and what are the key talking points?
Yeah, sure. It's not far away now, which is why I'm losing even more hair than I have already when you get close to these things. But yeah, really excited about this. It's the theme of the conference is progress, and we've linked it to a manifesto that we created just before Christmas. We got in early to send to the whole of Westminster, whichever political persuasion you've got. So we're really focusing on rail industry is a big part of business travel. I spend a lot of time in the rail sector, and we have Lord Adonis coming to speak, who is Minister of Transport, has some very outspoken views, as I think you would have seen before, Ryan, on the railway and particularly around HS2, which we were, very disappointed on the way it's moved, but equally pleased that some of the mayors are suggesting a private investment might get it to actually go somewhere where it needs to go. So we've got rail very much on the agenda. Really excited. We Generation BTA. I don't know if we have a shadow board, which is middle managers that shadow our exec board. So we're doing a session with them on what the industry needs to do to change to be more attractive to bringing new people into the sector, whether straight from school, from uni, or more mature that want a career change. We've got a bit of a marketing job to do on our industry post the pandemic, because everything being closed and people going, well, that's a bit of a risky place to come or whatever. So we're having a really good session. They're great. The enthusiasm and passion they have for the industry is really good. Really excited. Also, we've got Shai, the CEO of Virgin Atlantic, who's coming in to do our second keynote. And he'll be talking around the progress Virgin have made post the event, and also around their SAF progress with the flight. I was very lucky to be on the first SAF flight with him, and lots of other bits and pieces. We've got the classic AI. We're doing a legal perspective on AI. Who owns the data? Who gets in trouble if you do something wrong with AI, which is a bit scary on occasion. So that should be fun. And we're doing a bit of government stuff in what we need to do in a general election year. We've got actually the Tourism Alliance and Airlines UK on the stage with me and our government advisors, just chatting that through. So quite a wide and varied agenda, and some other stuff. So I'm looking forward to that day. It's all fixed up now, kind of sorted, and should be a good day.
Excellent. Fantastic. That does sound like a packed program. Clive, thank you for taking us through all those questions today. I really appreciate your insights, and hopefully that will be beneficial to our listeners. Much appreciated.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So that was Clive Ratton, the Chief Executive of the Business Travel Association. For more of our podcast, please head to your chosen podcast channel, whether that's Spotify or Apple, or head over to LinkedIn, Travel Market Life, and follow our latest updates. I'm your host, Ryan Haynes. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
For more, go to Travel Market Life. The music sensation by Zach Nelson is reproduced under license from Storyblocks. Travel Market Life is a Haynes Marcoms digital marketing agency production, serving the travel and technology industries.